Hey y'all, welcome to The Bridge Online. My name is Jack. We are so glad that you are here today joining us on YouTube. We can't wait to get things started. But first, if this is your very first time joining us, welcome. We'd love to get to know you and we'd love to send you a gift. Yeah, like a real gift, like in the mail. Crazy. So if that's you, if this is your very first time, text BRIDGE to 94,000. We'll get connected to you. We'll help you even get you connected to a community of faith, whether that's here in person or virtually. Well, we can't wait to continue this series about faith in an anxious world. So look out for this incredible message from Jess.
Hey friends, if you don't know me, my name is Jess. I'm our Associate Youth Director here at Doxology, and we are so excited to wrap up our Faith in an Anxious World series today. I had to practice saying that slowly because I keep saying Faith in an Ancient World, and that's not the name of the series at all. I don't know why, but my brain keeps connecting anxious and ancient, and I keep mixing them up. But as I was thinking about that this week, I realized that as I've dealt with my own anxiety and my own fears, I felt like I was the only one who'd ever felt this way. I feel like sometimes when we talk about anxiety, we feel like it's only this generation who's ever felt anxious. But the cool thing about this series is that we've spent the last 3 weeks and this week also looking at specific examples in the Bible that talk about anxiety. That means they're like 2,000 years old minimum of these stories of anxiety in people's lives. And I don't know about you guys, but that kind of makes me feel not as alone as we look at what it looks like to have faith in an anxious world. I don't know about you, but I can't remember a time where I haven't felt fear. Like, it sounds a little ridiculous, but my personality is super fearful. Every personality test I've ever taken has told me that I am a very fearful person. And sometimes in my story, in my life, that has kind of manifested in anxiety in different ways and different times. It's crazy to think about, but I honestly can't think of a time that I didn't feel fear and that I didn't let my fear control my actions, how I interacted with people, and how I thought about myself. I remember in 3rd grade, I was afraid of missing the bus. Like, this sounds like a little itty bitty fear that's kind of silly that every kid kind of goes through for like 24 hours and then gets over. But I kid you not, I was afraid of missing the bus for all of 3rd grade through like 6th grade. I was just a weirdo. I had so much fear around this specific topic. My brother, I have a twin brother, my brother would finish up class, he would walk around, he would go to the playground, he'd say goodbye to all of his friends, and then casually just walk up to the bus. But I had all of this fear in my heart that I was gonna miss the bus. I had all these what ifs of like, what if I stop at the bathroom and somehow that means that I don't have time to get to the bus and I miss the bus? Like, what if I talk to my friends and that just takes up all of the time, the bus decides to leave early and I miss it? What if I don't make the bus? What if my parents can't pick us up? Like, what if I had all of these fears, all of these thoughts that consumed me, that turned me into the kid that literally like threw all of my stuff in my bag super quick and I ran to the bus as fast as possible? As I got into middle school and high school, my fears were a little less silly and just strange and affected me in more ways. I remember this moment in middle school when a group of my friends told one of our other friends that she couldn't be friends with us anymore. They straight up told her that she was weird and she couldn't sit with us. Now, that sounds like a cheesy moment from a movie, but I remember in that moment instantly having more what if thoughts and more fears. I thought, what if I did something that made them think that way about me? I started thinking, what if I'm not enough? What if I'm not cool enough? What if I'm weird too? And it started affecting how I interacted with my friends, how I interacted with future friends. It started affecting who I was. Like, I became so shy. I didn't talk to people because I felt like if they didn't know who I really was, then they couldn't find something that they wouldn't like about me. And so I became painfully shy. And my fear started affecting the way I interacted with people. into high school and the beginning of college, I had a lot of fear around my school and future. I would have these moments where I would be so fearful about a bunch of things, but it would compact onto one individual thing. I would have like a single school assignment or a quiz coming up, and I would start projecting all of my fears about school and the future onto that one moment. Like I would have this moment where I'd think, what if I don't know the answer to this question? And then it would go to, what if I fail the quiz? And what if I fail the test? What if I never graduate? What if I don't go to college? And then I would never get a good job. I would never have a good income, which would mean I would become homeless. I would be the smelly person on the side of the road. No one would want to be friends with me. No, I would never get married. I would never have kids, and I would die alone. It would be this crazy moment where I knew, like, logically this wasn't that big of a deal, but all of my fears started compacting together, and it caused a ton of anxiety in my life, and it even led me to having panic attacks and being so overwhelmed with all of my thoughts and my worries that it affected the way that I responded to life and the things that I did. And friends, I remember in those seasons, like I grew up going to church. I grew up going to youth group, and I knew that we were supposed to trust God. I knew that we were supposed to follow God, and I had so many moments where I felt like I needed to remove my fears so that I could follow Jesus. I felt like I needed to eliminate this anxiety in my life, like I needed to get rid of it. And once I did that, I could follow Jesus. But friends, what we can learn from the Bible is that that's not what Jesus is saying for our lives. That's not how Jesus sees our anxiety and our fears. He sees it in a completely different way. And so today I want to read from Mark 6. And we're gonna read a story that I don't think is usually connected to anxiety. Like the first time I read it, I definitely didn't think about it connected to anxiety, but I think it paints a beautiful picture of what it looks like for us to respond to our anxiety and our fears in our life. Because anxiety and fear is real. Like it's a part of life. And Jesus has a way that we're supposed to respond to it. Like a calling of how we're supposed to respond to fear in our lives. And so let's read. It's gonna be super good. We're in Mark chapter 6, verse 30. It says, the apostles returned to Jesus and told him everything they had done. And so right there at the beginning of the chapter, Jesus had sent out the 12 apostles. He had sent them out 2 by 2 to go heal people, to go teach his message. He sent them out on behalf of him. And so they went out and they went from village to village and did all of this amazing stuff. And so in verse 30, this is the moment where they're all coming back together and they're like, oh my gosh, Jesus, we did this. Like there was this guy and this happened. And so they're all sharing these exciting stories, the exciting moments of what just happened in their life. Like Jesus had sent them out and they all came back and they're super pumped. Like they're so excited and they're telling him what happened. And it says many people were coming and going. So much there was no time to eat. So they were so pumped. They were so in the moment. They were so like sharing with people, and other people were coming in and asking questions. Like so much was going on, they forgot to eat lunch. Like that's literally what happened. And so he said to the apostles, come by yourself to a secluded place and rest for a while. They departed in a boat by themselves for a deserted place. So Jesus is like, wow, a lot just happened. Like we should just go over there where there's not a bunch of people and just like take a nap for a second. And so they get in a boat to go there. And it says that people like recognized them. They had just gone out and done all of these amazing things. They came back with these awesome stories and people were hearing about it. Like people were talking about it. And so they saw them get on the boat and they're like, hey, I know that guy. And so it says many people saw them leaving and recognized them. So they ran ahead from all the cities and arrived before them. These people literally ran to the middle of nowhere just to hear what these guys were saying because they knew there was something about them that was different, that they needed in their hearts, that they needed in their lives. And so they were willing to run out to the middle of nowhere. There's like 5,000 people in the middle of nowhere. And Jesus gets off the boat and it says, when Jesus arrived, he saw the large crowd. And he had compassion on them because they were like sheep without a shepherd. Then he began to teach them many things. Later in the day, so after Jesus was teaching them a bunch of stuff, his disciples came to him and said, this is an isolated place, and it's already late in the day. Send them away so that they can go to the surrounding countrysides and villages and buy something to eat for themselves. And this next moment, how Jesus responds to that logical thought is what would spark anxiety in my life. And I want you to think about how anxious Jesus' response would make you feel. He says to them, you give them something to eat. Like Jesus says, you can feed them. And I'm just saying, like, if I were one of the disciples in this moment, that would spark all of those what if thoughts that my brain is constantly processing. Like, that would spark so much fear in me of like, I don't know how to feed 5,000 people in the middle of nowhere. Like, there's no Walmart here. And even if there was, like, would they have enough food for everyone? Probably not. Like, it would spark so much worry and thought in my head because any logical person would be like, I don't know how to do that. Like, that is physically impossible for me to do right now. And we can see that the apostles were probably feeling the same way because it says that they responded to Jesus saying, should we go off and buy bread worth almost eight months' pay and give it to them to eat? And so the apostles are like, that's not possible. I don't know how to do that. And so a human response to that situation would be fear, would be the thoughts of what if, would be anxiety. But what Jesus does is what is the answer of how we're supposed to respond to our fear, how we're supposed to see our anxiety in our lives. And it's this, it says, Jesus said to them, how much bread do you have? Take a look. After checking, the disciples said 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. And so he directed the disciples to see all the people in groups as though they were having a banquet on the grass. They sat down in groups of 150s. He took the 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, looked up to the heavens, blessed them, broke the loaves into pieces, and gave them to his disciples and set before the people. He also divided the 2 fish among them all. Everyone ate until they were full. They had filled 12 baskets with leftover pieces of bread and fish. About 5,000 had eaten. Like, that's crazy. If we read that, like, that's insane. If you've never heard that before, he literally took like a Lunchable, someone's lunch, and divided it amongst 5,000 people, and they ate until they were full. That is an insane miracle that does not make sense, that is crazy cool. But what does it have to do with our anxiety? Because I feel like we read that and we're like, okay, but what just happened, right? We're like, okay, the disciples probably felt some fear being told, hey, you're gonna feed these people. But then what happens next? The key point that I don't want us to miss is that Jesus was right there with them the whole time. Yes, there was this moment that could have felt fearful. There was this moment that could have caused anxiety in their lives. But Jesus' response is that he's right there with the disciples the whole time. He doesn't just give them a big job and expect them to do it on their own. He said, hey, I know this is scary, but look it, I'm right here with you. He stands with the disciples and he says, okay, how many pieces of bread do you have? And then together they sat everyone. And the disciples were a part of the miracle. They got to sit down and be a part of what Jesus was doing. And that's what Jesus is saying in our lives. Like, he's not expecting us to remove our anxiety and our fear on our own before we can even be with him and live life with him. He's saying, I know you feel this way. I know this is real, but I'm right here with you the whole way. Jesus isn't looking for perfection in our lives. He's looking for us to trust him. And I think I want to be really clear on what trust is. Because trusting God is not having no fear. Trusting God isn't having no fear. Trusting God is following him despite our fear. We don't have to eliminate our fear. We have to lean into the moments that feel fearful and know that Jesus is right there with us. And so we can trust him. And I know that seems like such a church answer. So what do we actually do with that? Like, we hear the statement that trusting God is following him despite our fear and anxiety. But what does that actually look like in our lives? Because I've been there, guys. I know that the moments that we feel anxious, I know the moments where our fear feels like crippling, like we can't do anything, feel overwhelming. And so how do we actually get from the moment that we feel fear and the moment that we feel anxious to the moment that we're able to follow God despite having those feelings? And I have 4 steps for us to do, 4 things that have personally helped me be able to conquer my own anxiety. And the first is calm yourself. I actually wrote down calm yourself physically, but I like calm yourself. Like calm your body down. Literally, anytime you are feeling anxious, the first thing you need to do is breathe. I know Megan talked about it last week, but it's so important. I don't want you to miss this. Anytime I feel anxious at all, I sit down, I close my eyes, and I take a deep breath, and I count to 5. And then I do it again. There's something about being able to just sit down and focus on breathing and take deep breaths in and deep breaths out that helps us remember that Jesus is right there with us. And so once you're able to breathe, you can continue on to be able to live out following Jesus despite your fears and anxiety. There's also things that you can do like personally before you get to the anxious moments that can help you like calm down physically. And the first one is to make intentional moments of just being calm. You know, thinking back, the seasons of my life that I was the most anxious were the seasons of my life that I wasn't sleeping a normal schedule, like 8 hours a night, like a normal human being. It was the nights that I was up and pulling all-nighters and staying up late and trying to study. And so there's something so powerful about us being able to calm ourselves down. Calm yourself even before we get anxious. You can have a regular sleep schedule. You can do things like yoga or go on a walk on a regular basis, physical activities that make yourself feel calm before you're even anxious. I also want to just point out that one of the ways to calm yourself, to calm your body, could be prescriptions from a doctor. You know, if you and your parents talk to a doctor and there is something that they can do to help balance out the chemicals in your brain, to help balance out how you're feeling, that's helpful to be able to live out having faith even when you feel anxious. And so number 1 is calm yourself. Make sure you're breathing and doing things that help you stay calm. And the second thing to help us live out following God despite having fears and anxiety is correct your thinking. Y'all, this literally is a game changer for me. Every time I have any kind of worry, every time I am super stressed out or anxious about something, I correct my thinking. It's so difficult, but it's so important. And here's what I think correcting your thinking is. It's learning to place what you do know about God above what you don't know about a situation. Learning to place what you do know about God above what you don't know about a situation. Friends, our thoughts are controlled by our emotions, by what's happening around us, by our perceptions of what other people are thinking, and sometimes they're just straight up lies. And so we have to place what we do know about God over what we don't know about a situation. I think sometimes I have thoughts that I am not enough. Like I stand on stage and I have thoughts that I don't think that I'm the right person to be there. But friends, we have to take that thing that we don't know. We don't necessarily know that we're not the best person to be on stage, but we do know that God loves us and that God created us in our own image. And so when you're having thoughts of not being enough, of not being worthy enough, you have to put what you don't know below what you do know about God. And what we do know about God is that He loves you so much, that He died on the cross for you, and that He wants a personal relationship with you. There's also a lot of fear and anxiety regarding the future. I'm going to let y'all in on a little bit of a secret. We record these videos a few weeks in advance. And so right now, I don't know the results of the election. And I know the election has been a source of so much anxiety for so many people. And in this moment, in this season, when we're surrounded by the anxiety of all of the unknowns, of all of the what ifs of the future and what could happen, we have to put what we do know about God above what we don't know about a situation. We don't know the outcome of the next 4 years. We don't know what anything is going to look like at all, but we do know that God loves you and has a plan for you, and it could be completely different than anything you ever imagined. It could be completely different than what's comfortable and what you want, but God has a plan, and it's going to be great. The next response we have to our fear is to confront our fear. Y'all, if we don't confront our fear, we're giving it power. If we don't confront our anxiety, we're giving it power. And so when you feel anxious, after you're calm and you've corrected your thoughts, think about what you're actually afraid of. And then I want you to ask yourself, what is one thing that you thought was scary that ended up not being scary? Sometimes when I feel overwhelmed or I feel fearful, especially about the future and what's so unknown, I think back to the season of post-college life that I had. Right after I graduated, I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea where I was going, or I had no income, I had no job, I didn't know anything. And I remember feeling so fearful in that situation, but I can look back and see that God has taken me to something better than I could have imagined. And so in moments of scariness, of when the future seems so unknown, I look back and see a different moment that felt that same way, but God had an outcome that was good. And so when you have moments that you're overwhelmed, that something feels really scary, find time to think about another time that something was scary and it turned out to not be. That doesn't remove the fear and the anxiety in the moment, but it takes the power away from fear and anxiety controlling all of your actions and your thoughts. And the last thing we can do as we're learning that trusting God is following Him despite our fear and anxiety is to pour our hearts out to God, is to continue to seek Him every single day. Friends, we talked about how we have to learn to place what we do know about God above what we don't know about a situation or a moment. And in order to do that, we have to know who God is. And so when we seek Jesus every day, when we look towards the Bible, when we come to community, when we talk about who He is on a regular basis, when we worship Him, and when we pray and get to know Him more, we find opportunities to know the truth in our lives and to remember that He is right there with us. Just like the disciples in the story, like Jesus is right there with you. He knows you feel anxious. He knows you feel fear, but you don't have to let that control your actions because He is right there with you. Friends, trusting God isn't having no fear or anxiety. Trusting God is following Him despite your fear and anxiety. Let's pray before we head into small groups tonight. Dear God, thank you so much for just the opportunity to talk about anxiety. Lord, I know personally, this is a scary thing to bring up because it feels like it's hopeless and it feels like we're admitting that there's something just not strong about us. And so, Lord, I just pray for good conversations. Jesus, help us keep our eyes focused on you, that despite how scary our thoughts can be, we know that we can trust you and that you are right there with us, even when things feel overwhelming. We love you, Jesus, and we need you every single day. Amen.
Sometimes would make me feel uncomfortable to take deep breaths because I wasn't used to even doing that. So people would be like, breathe deeply. And I'd be like, this makes me feel worse at first because I just wasn't used to it. It wasn't something I naturally did, but like something I practiced doing, which now when I feel anxious, I'm able to say, oh, I have to take deep breaths.
Learning to respond to anxiety well is like learning an instrument or learning a sport. It takes practice during times when the pressure is off. We can practice breathing, daily prayers of gratitude, talking with caring adults, or even talking with our parents. When we take time to practice, it makes us ready for game day, ready for the performance, ready for the day of the test, or the day when friendships seem to crumble, so that when the alarm goes off, we're ready to respond.
First of all, I have a notebook that I've been writing in since I was in the 4th grade, and it's helped me a lot.
Being very active helps, like your mind disappears, it's just you and the body, it helps a lot.
Try to stay away from social media possibly because it might, I don't know, trigger something else.
I'll make tea. Tea helps me a lot.
There's like something about music that helps a lot.
I like to turn to God, for instance, and we basically just get a one-on-one conversation. I just let all my feelings out. I really have no way of doing it. You just talk.
To just kind of pinpoint the physical aspects of things, like am I getting antsy? And just to like notice those little signifiers like that, you start to see what it is that makes you anxious, and you find your boundaries. And then you can start to stretch those boundaries.
If the first thing you find or if what someone suggests to you doesn't work, that doesn't mean like that's the only thing that can be helpful. You should keep looking and keep trying to find something until you find something that clicks for you.
People are a good way to kind of like get you out of your own head with anxiety.
It's a little story about my friend who was in the car and we're in traffic, and he just started feeling anxious and he just started getting that feeling, and I was like, I know exactly how you feel. How can you feel better now? Like, would this help? Would this help? Would this help? And then he's like, oh, that would actually help, you know? So one of the things that happened to him, we pulled over and he got out and started walking. And that was one of the things that I had mentioned that. And he didn't think about that because he was just feeling anxious, you know? So knowing those feelings, I listed a few things that could probably help, and he just picked one and that actually did help. So that was good that I was there.
Because before I've told someone that I was having a hard time and they were like, oh, I was having a hard time and I never told anyone that either. And so you could be helping someone else by being the one who talked to them in the first place, you know? So you're not only helping yourself, but other people around you.
Like even just this conversation that we're having right now is encouraging to me because I would not have been able to say those things like 2 years ago. And now being able to like verbalize and articulate, you know, certain things that make me anxious, like different things that I can do, we can really figure out what we need to work on and how strong we are. Like, you're stronger than you realize. And just one day at a time, one step at a time.
Jess, thanks so much for that encouraging message. I think it's important for us to learn how to thrive, not just survive in times where we're stressed out or we're feeling anxious. And a lot of that just is involved with our day-to-day lives. And you know, for you, maybe you just need some help of figuring out what that looks like, or maybe you want to share a prayer request that you have. You know, we'd love to help you out with that. You can go to this link below and just fill out a little form real quick, just so we know how to pray for you, or we want to help you take a next step to follow Jesus or be baptized or become a leader. And you know, one of the biggest parts about learning how to thrive and not just survive is being in community with people. And we value that so much because we know it is so good for us. So good for all of us. Even if we feel like we're in a good place, we still need community. And so we'd love for you to join us in community, whether that's in person on Wednesday nights or online on Wednesdays at 8:15. You can join us via Zoom if you go to this link here right below. But please be a part of community, lean in, get to know people, have a good time, and talk about real life and about things that really matter. Well, have a great week. We can't wait to see you again next time. Hey, thanks so much for watching this. Would you do us a favor and please, please, please subscribe? That helps us get this video in front of way more people if you subscribe, and it does a double bonus if you like and give us a comment. So please make sure and do that. It will do us a huge favor. Get this message in front of more people and make a bigger difference. Go for it. Do it now. Let's see it.